Everyone, if you don't have your headsets on, I think it's good to put your headsets on. No, it's okay. I just wanted them to put theirs. Okay, I'm going to get started. So hopefully you guys can hear me. If you can hear me on your headsets, give me a little wave. Thank you very much. And thanks for joining us today at this masterclass about outsourcing innovation. My name's David Lloyd. I'm the Chief Customer Officer of Awin. And I'm going to talk to you for about 20 minutes about what we mean at Awin about outsourcing innovation using the affiliates channel. And then I'm going to invite a few colleagues and customers and partners up on stage for a conversation. As I'm going through it, please think of any questions you may have for us, because we're also going to have time for you guys to ask questions to the panelists, possibly to me, but I'm going to be holding the mic, so I'll probably pass your questions straight to them rather than taking any hard questions myself. I've only been in Awin since the start of this year, so I joined 4 months ago. Prior to that, I spent 5 years running Alibaba's operations in Northern Europe, and before that, about 10 years at Google working with retail and tech partners. And the reason I was very keen to join Awin is because I felt, as I got to know the company and having worked with affiliates before, that it was a channel that was relatively misunderstood, a channel that's often undervalued, and a channel where people sometimes struggle to see the full, true value of all of the partnerships that we can bring. And therefore, what I wanted to do before I get deeper into the presentation is to talk about Awin, just very briefly. To introduce Awin to you if you don't know it very well. I didn't know it very well 6 months ago. And to talk about how the business has evolved. So Awin was born in 2000. So again, like kind of born pretty much around the millennium. It's a 22-year-old internet business. Very much a startup when it was created, now with 1,200 employees in 15 offices. Our main offices are in London and in Berlin. But we have full coverage throughout Europe, the Americas, and APAC. And we see ourselves very much as a connecting business. We connect thousands of advertisers to hundreds of thousands of partners and create value through those partnerships. And the value that we create is behind me at the bottom here. It's 14 billion euros in revenue of value generated for advertisers via those partnerships with an ROI of 13 to 1. And I stress this for a couple of reasons. The first is that I think, when you start to see the volume that goes through a channel like affiliates, that goes through Awin, you get the sense of the amount of business we're really helping to drive for advertisers and for publishers. The second is that compared to most other channels, this is real revenue, right? This is real revenue that is validated by advertisers, that is post-returns, that is actual money that they can bank, right? So it's a really serious ROI. That we're driving for advertisers via all of our partnerships. And the reason I wanted to talk to you guys today about Awin and about how we're thinking is that we think this is a great moment in time to diversify your marketing. I said that Awin is a connections business, right? It's a business that brings together thousands of advertisers and hundreds of thousands of partners and publishers. And the reason I think that is important is because the web has become extremely focused, right, extremely narrow. So what you can see behind me, and the colors haven't translated beautifully to the slide, but what you can see behind me is on the left-hand side where consumers spend their time in the US. That's big tech versus kind of rest of web. So in big tech, we spend about a third of our time. So all those big kind of mega cap stocks that we all know about, we spend about a third of our time there. We spend 2/3 of our time on the rest of the web. In terms of where advertisers invest their money, they actually tend to invest about 2/3 of their money where we spend a third of our time, and a third of our money where we spend 2/3 of our time, right? So there's a real imbalance in terms of consumer attention, but where we're actually investing. And the reason for that is those great tech companies, those big tech companies, 2 of which I've worked for myself, they're very, very good at making it easy for advertisers to spend money, making it easy to measure performance. Making it easy for businesses of any size to work with them. But I think what we feel at Awin is that we have an opportunity to make it just as easy, for advertisers of any size to connect with a multitude of partners, to connect to that other 2/3 of the internet. And we think that's a pretty big opportunity to reframe how we think about marketing on the web. And the way we think about it is this. It is that Awin can bring you infinite partnerships with one solution. Infinite partnerships because, as I say, we have 250,000 publishers active on the network. We actually have millions of businesses of different kinds that we work with. We have over 20,000 brands, some of whom look like this. This is a handful, but there's another 20,000 on top. Global brands, leading advertisers in market, working with us, driving that 14 billion euros of revenue. And they're working with hundreds of thousands of publishers like these, from content sites to bloggers to reviews to voucher codes to cashback to pay later and so much more besides. So there is a huge diversity of partnerships available on the network, but you can just have one conversation, come to Awin as an advertiser, one conversation can open up that diversity of partnerships to you as an advertiser, and as a publisher, of course, it can open you up to 20,000 advertisers. And what that means is we're changing the way we think about our business. Scott Galloway is speaking tomorrow, I think. He's kind of slightly higher up the agenda than me, but only slightly. And he talks about this clock model of consumer behavior, where he talks about if there are 12 hours in a clock describing consumer behavior, from 12 to 4 is that pre-purchase phase, right, where you're making your decision, you're researching products. As a brand, you have an opportunity to get in front of a consumer. From 5 till 8 is the purchase period, right? That's when you're buying, that's when you're in that mode and you buy immediately, and then 9 till 12 post-purchase. And one of the things that Scott Galloway does very well is take these relatively complex journeys and complex concepts and break them down to something quite simple. And then when I think about affiliates, and even my previous perception of affiliates, and I think about how that clock model applied, we basically thought of ourselves just here, pretty much around 4 p.m. when somebody's more or less made up their mind, they've more or less decided what they're going to do, and they're ready to buy. And the way we thought about things was, well, traditionally, we can just help get you over the line. We can help you make that decision, gain some additional value as a consumer, convince somebody as an advertiser, drive some value as a publisher. But with that diversity of partnerships we have today, with those hundreds of thousands of publishers and partners, and with what we're going to talk about next, we think that affiliates today can actually play throughout that 12-hour purchase cycle. We can play in every single hour of Scott Galloway's clock because we have those content sites. We have influencers on our platform inspiring consumers to buy your products. We have review sites when you're just choosing between two brands or between two products. And we have those traditional affiliate programs as well, like voucher codes and cashback, the things that help get you over the line. But what we have beyond that, and we're going to hear a bit more about, is increasing numbers of technology partners. Tech partners who, again, you can plug in to your website. You can plug in using your existing Awin relationship, who can help you convert, who can help increase your AOV, who can help you pull back a customer who's thinking about leaving your website, and can help you maintain a better customer relationship longer term. So now, affiliates as a channel has moved from that very narrow 4 p.m. slot to playing a role throughout the customer journey. And what that means for us, if I come back to that idea that we spend 2/3 of our time over here, advertisers spend one third of their money there, but we think that Awin and affiliate marketing can now be a gateway to the diversity of the web, a gateway to diverse marketing opportunities, diverse technology opportunities, which can hugely increase the value for you as a brand, for you as a publisher, but also for consumers. And the way we demonstrate that is often every year we release a report called the Awin report. It has something called the Power 100. And if there's one thing I'd want you to take away while I'm speaking, is I'd want you to search out the Awin report and have a look at that diversity of partners, at the huge array of businesses. This is just our top 100 partners, and there's this huge array within there. Like I say, from brands to influencer to reviews to cashback to technology partners like those we're going to hear from, talking about all of the ways in which you can augment your online marketing, your online customer journeys with a simple relationship. And in that report, we talk about outsourcing innovation. So several of the partners we introduced there are partners who can help you outsource innovation. And the reason we think about outsourcing innovation is because the work these partners can do, the work they can do on your site to drive value, to help drive additional purchases, to increase basket size and AOV, to bring those customers back. If you tried to do all of that yourself, if you tried to do all of that in-house, normally speaking, for a business of an average size, it would take years. Because you have a development queue, you have other projects that your dev team are working on, or you would have to go and find external vendors, and you'd have to find 5, 10, 20 external vendors. What we can do by integrating these tech partners into your existing business with Awin is say you can plug and play these technologies. You can get them live on your website in a matter of weeks. The work tends to be done by the partner, not by you. Your dev team, who may typically say, it sounds like a great idea you're bringing me, but we can't do it until 2024, they won't have to do any work, right? Because these are plug and play solutions. And this is what we mean by outsourcing innovation, is giving you as brands and you as publishers access to tens and hundreds of innovative companies who would be very hard for you to manage if you were doing it yourselves, but now you can do via Awin. And why we want to do this is because we know there's going to be increased investment in this area. We know, particularly during a slowdown, which we're already beginning to experience, that you have to invest in your customer experience. The marketing costs are rising, that you need to spend more time and probably more resources building your digital capabilities, but building them is expensive. So if you can outsource those digital capabilities, if you can find a simple way of doing that, then you have an opportunity to change your business in a very high impact and very low touch way. And so these are some of the things we're thinking about. I'm not going to go through all of these because otherwise we'll be here a very long time. But if you want to increase your conversion rates, you want to increase AOVs, you want more traffic, you want to measure your marketing better, you want to personalize your website experience, you want to monetize your basket exits, you want to use discounts better. If you want to do any of those things, there's an array of different ideas, an array of different options you could take within there, and each one of them is going to cost you time, is going to cost you money, is going to cost you resources. But we have partners for all of these within the Awin ecosystem. To be clear, these are not Awin businesses. These are third parties we trust, who can integrate in a plug-and-play fashion with your site. We have over 80 of these businesses already integrated with Awin. Many of them working closely with advertisers large and small, and they can be transformative for your business for almost no cost, right? For very limited touch. Many of them will work on a CPA basis, right? So if they do increase your basket size, if they do increase your AOV, you'll only pay them when they do that, right? You're not going to pay them for the work of getting to that point normally. Now that can work really well for small businesses, right? If you're a smaller company, typically, that's a business that is light on resource, struggles to think about how it can invest its next euro, has to think very carefully about how it can develop these kinds of capabilities. So for sure, we offer all of this to SMEs, and we've thought a lot about how we offer this to SMEs. But it's also very large companies who have this problem we're solving for. So one business we work with on this basis is Samsung. And so Samsung doesn't have really this kind of problem of paucity of resources. Samsung doesn't have a problem of a small company thinking, well, where do I invest my next euro? Samsung's problem is more, they have a very, very lengthy development time. They have a queue of projects that is very hard to bump your project up that queue. So the way they use the Awin master tag, the way they use this idea of outsourcing innovation is to say, well, let's find some really smart technologies within the Awin ecosystem, sell them into the business, get people bought in to the power of that solution. And then they use the master tag, they use this idea of outsourcing innovation on Awin, bring them into their business, and they can be live in a matter of weeks. So I'll give you one example, a business called Upsell It. So Samsung was thinking, well, how do we get people to buy ancillary products? They're increasing their D2C business. Someone might come onto the site driven to buy the new Galaxy S22. What they want them to do as well is to buy a case, to buy all of the kind of extra products or headphones that you might buy with a phone. How can you do that recommendation? How can you get consumers to increase their basket size. Well, they worked with Upsell It to do that. There was a piece of work over several weeks which they did together. They plugged in the solution in a matter of weeks. Upsell It spent a few weeks analyzing their data, understanding where people spend their time on the site. And within a month, they'd driven over €1 million of revenue. Sorry, I'll just go back quickly. Within a month, they'd driven over €1 million of incremental revenue. They saw customer value on the different campaigns they were running this on range from an increase of 1% to 8%. For a business of this magnitude, that is incredibly significant to increase customer revenue by 8% on a campaign, to increase AOVs on specific campaigns by 14%, and all for a quick plug-in, a few weeks of analysis done by a third party, right? So this is incredibly powerful for a large business. It's also very powerful for mid-sized businesses. So I won't spend a huge amount of time talking about this example because Sri's going to come up and talk about increasingly in just a moment. But Crackhopper's a great kind of outdoor wear brand. They were looking to improve their AOVs. They wanted, again, similar to Samsung, right? Had to make recommendations, make the consumers who landed on their site more valuable. They worked with increasingly, again, simple plug-in. I think the work took 3-4 weeks. Let's say 3, because Sri's nodding. 3 weeks. Within a month, €200,000 of extra revenue driven. AOVs skyrocketing because they were able to recommend similar products. They were able to monetize consumers who weren't sure, or if a product was out of stock, they could recommend a product that you might buy if you weren't going to buy that. So monetizing the exit, monetizing consumer journeys that were previously broken. And then finally, Intently. So Intently does overlays on site. And what we've done with Intently is rather than introduce them to individual customers, we've introduced them to Awin Access customers. And I would guess many of you don't know what Awin Access is. Awin Access is a program we introduced in the last couple of years for micro SMEs, for really small businesses who want to gain value from the affiliate channel, but who might be a bit tentative about immediately investing, for whom the immediate investment might feel like it's too much of a reach. What we've done with Awin Access is opened up affiliate marketing to much smaller companies and said for a relatively modest monthly fee, you can have access to those 200,000 or 250,000 active publishers, start an affiliate program, and start making money on the web for your business. What we've also done with a business like Intently is to plug in that technology to any of those businesses who want it, so that now they can have these kind of smart overlays on their site. And it's pretty straightforward, right? If you're a larger company, this is not phenomenally new technology, right? The idea of somebody who's got something in a basket but is looking like they're about to bounce off the site, saying, hey, you've left this in your basket. Somebody who has searched for a product and is looking like they're about to bounce off the site and say, well, you didn't find what you were looking for, but we sell this product and it's really similar. And for smaller businesses, again, this is really transformational technology, and we've opened it up to thousands and thousands of access customers. So bringing really innovative, really new, really groundbreaking technology that is normally too expensive or too difficult to implement for SMEs. So businesses who are among the largest tech companies in the world, micro SMEs from around the world, are getting access to outsourced innovation. And I've just chosen 3 examples there, but as I say, there are nearly 100 of these partners working with us among the tens and hundreds of thousands of publishers. And so if you were looking to work with any of them, what I would say is, like, you may be a Awin customer already, you may be an Awin publisher. The team would very much like to hear from you if you're already working with us and you want access to this, because it's really, really straightforward, and we can have a very quick conversation about how you gain access as a brand to this. Or if you're not a customer, hopefully it gives you some inspiration to think differently about affiliates. And I want to be really honest. When I was responsible for marketing in some previous roles, I had a very narrow view of affiliates. I had a very narrow view of what we think about as partner marketing. I thought it was kind of very clear value, kind of last click, pre-purchase, and that's it. what I learned as I went through the process of talking to Awin is it is so much more than that. It's so much richer. It is so much more powerful. It's so much more valuable. But it's been undervalued for too long. And what we're doing at Awin is bringing as much of that richness as we can, working with partners, working with publishers from all over the world to try and say, let's bring that richness of the web, let's bring that 2/3 of where you spend your time into the spotlight, to brands who may have previously had a narrow view, to publishers who may have previously had a narrow view, and really show the value of this channel. And so, like, the final thing I wanted to leave you with is this idea of infinite partnerships in one solution. This idea that we are a gateway and can be a gateway to all of the richness and all of the diversity of the web. I want to thank you for listening to me, because I know it's a whistle-stop tour of Awin and a kind of funny experience listening in on headphones as well. And now I'm going to invite the panelists up on stage. So please welcome to the stage Shri from Increasingly. And please give them a quick round of applause as they come up, so you hear it. Clementine from Awin. Just keep clapping as they come up. I'll do it quickly. We've got Johannes as well from Projector. Welcome, Johannes. And then Jelle as well from Awin. Thank you very much. It was a little bit half-hearted. They were like, but thank you. We appreciated it. You know, it's a long time to clap. But thank you very much. It's really good to have you guys up here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stand close enough to them so I can hear their answers. I'm going to ask each of these guys to introduce themselves. We're going to do a bit of Q&A. And then please be thinking of any questions you have for the panel. And at that point, I'm going to become a kind of very low-rent TV host, and I'm going to run around the room giving you the microphone and introducing you to these guys. So perhaps, is there a microphone here? So maybe if you guys keep this one.
Is it on channel 2 or 0?
I'm on channel 1.
Channel 1. Can you hear me? Yes. Great.
Okay, well, hey, Jelle, you have the mic. Oh. So why don't we just go this way, and then we'll go back that way with questions. Please go ahead. Maybe just introduce yourself, what you do, and you know, why you're here.
So my name is Jelle. I won't even start about my surname because it's very hard to pronounce as a typical Dutch guy. So what my role is in Awin, I look at the commercial side of things for these technology partners like Increasingly to help them grow globally, but also ensure for our clients to have the best commercial deal, but also always looking for your objectives and how our technology partners can help solve those, basically. That's what my role is.
So I'm going to move on. My name is Johannes. I'm from Projector. We're an online marketing agency based in Leipzig, and I'm in charge of the partner management, which is indeed affiliate marketing, SEO, and web analytics. And the things David mentioned, you know, speaking of the clients who are not that willingly to use this new technology because they still think of affiliate marketing as affiliate marketing in the old era where you just generate traffic and sales. So I'm really looking forward for this discussion, and I'm going to move over to Clementine.
Thank you. So I'm currently the Global Head of Strategic Partnerships and Innovation at Awin, but I would say that my previous career can be split into two clear paths. So much of my infancy at Awin was focused on more of the publisher side of things, and then a couple of years ago I moved over to more of a sort of strategic and innovative element. And I suppose the reason I'm here on this panel is because my role before this one was focused really heavily on creating the app tracking strategy for Awin.
Very good. Hi guys, my name is Shri Sharma. I'm CEO and co-founder of Increasingly. So you heard a little bit from David around what we do. If you think about Amazon's frequently bought together, which is why don't you buy these things together, we enable that concept called bundling for retailers' sites in marketing like Google Shopping and email, and in store as well. And we work with a lot of large and medium-sized enterprise like Boots, Walgreen, Feel Unique. That's a large equivalent of an Ulta Beauty from the US. Equivalent companies like Hornbach in Germany and several others. Oh, you've got one.
This is a real power play. I keep this mic. But Sri, perhaps as you have the mic, we start with you. If you could tell us a bit about why and how you found it Increasingly, and maybe a bit about how the business has developed as well. So we looked at one of the options you have, but maybe you've developed different strategies as well for businesses.
So Here's a stat for you. Forrester talk about how retailers leave 10% money on the table because they don't do a very good job of selling the project or otherwise the experience. They're very good at selling products, but not the project or the experience. So if you're in beauty, you want to sell a beauty regime. If you're in home improvement, you want to sell the outdoor project, perhaps. If you're in apparel, you want to sell the overall look. And retailers always leave 10% money on the table. And what we saw was that Amazon had a solution that seemed to generate extra revenue, incremental revenue. So we built algorithms around being able to identify the right things that go well together for different verticals. And it clearly worked. And on very large split tests with very large companies, we're boosting revenue between 5 to 15% on a split test basis. That's probably how we started. And then most recently, our play is around saying, well, that's great. You can boost AOV by implementing increasingly. But today, with advertising costs declining, we're finding that retailers are really dependent on those customers coming back again and again, lifetime value. So we're trying to help retailers identify their high-value customers who will spend more today and talk to them differently so that they spend more today and they come back tomorrow. So it's a segmentation play along with the AI algorithms that we have.
That's a super helpful overview. I wonder if we might go to Johannes quickly. So what Sri described there, right, sounds super valuable, 10% on the table, it feels like it makes a ton of sense. And what I think we've been talking about on top of this is, well, how do you bring that to as many people as possible, and how do you make it easy, right? Because if you're resource rich, if you have a very clear roadmap for it, then it feels more straightforward. But for most businesses, it doesn't feel straightforward. And maybe could you talk to us a bit, Johannes, about your customers and how are they approaching this? How are German businesses in particular adopting this approach?
Yeah, good question. Maybe I can give you more information on how our client structure at Projector is. So 50% of our affiliate clients are major corporations, and the 50% are small, medium businesses. So maybe I'm going to start with that major corporation, because there, regarding the new technologies, it's somehow hard. Why is it hard? You have our contact person, she or he is in charge of affiliate marketing activities. She has a certain budget, and she has to use this budget for the whole year. So if we are trying to use a new way to get more revenue or to increase the basket or to change the landing pages, it's somehow hard. Why is it hard? Affiliate marketing is in these major corporations only linked to generating traffic or sales. You know, you have the content partners, you have the influencers, you have the review sites, you have the price comparison and that stuff. They are generating traffic and thus sales to you as an advertiser, but everything that happens on your website, just like increasing the average basket or using Segmentify to change the landing pages, this is actually not linked to affiliate marketing. You know, there's, for instance, another department which is involved, you know, the UX department or even the content marketing, and the affiliate manager says, okay, cool thing, I'd like to have these 10% on top, but it's not in my budget. We have problems because it's not last click, speaking about attribution. And we have another partner involved with it, another department here. And what about data and privacy? You know, we're in German. Well, this is also really, really critical in German. And then you have like feedback loops, which take not only 3 weeks, but like months or even years. And then you can say, okay, well, maybe we switch our time to another topic and use other publishers and get back to the old affiliate marketing. These are the major corporations, but then you have these small business enterprises. And to be honest, this is actually really cool because you can convince them in a much easier way. And you can tell them, okay, let's take the 10% more. And they are eager to use, for instance, 3 solution to get or to increase the basket or to get a higher conversion rate, or use Segmentify to change the landing pages because the shops don't work like they should do. And then they say, okay, of course, why shouldn't I take it? I have the master tag, I can just plug and play it in, and then I can make use of this new technology. And this is how it's, well, slightly different.
And if I stay with you for a moment, Johannes, because you see so many different customers. So I described a little bit about my perception of the channel historically. As more of these technologies are being launched, as more options are available, Are you seeing perceptions of the channel change? And if not, what work do you think has to be done to make that happen? This is advice for me.
Well, there is a change. You know, we had like 2 years of the pandemic, and I don't know if you can say it, but there has even been some things which were somehow good. I'm not speaking of the COVID made things really great, but there were some things that were good because the advertisers, they had to rethink the strategy. And some of them stopped thinking in silos, where you say you have this budget for that. They became like open to somehow an ecosystem in the whole client structure or in the whole department structure. And now what we can see is there's a slight change, because now they ask the question which you mentioned there: what do I want to do? Can I do it on my own, or do I need to outsource it? Of course, I can try to set up the technology on my own, and I can try to write codes and get an own system working, but it's much easier to get like 3 on board who can do it just like plug and play. And these are the changes we see in the last month, but to be honest, it's just small steps that are just being generated right now in Germany, I have to say that, yeah.
Thanks very much. Clementine, I wanted to come to you because we've talked a bit about this, I would say, from a site perspective, but obviously apps have been important for a while, becoming increasingly important. Increasingly is a very good name, by the way. You find yourself saying it a lot once you're in normal conversations. Very smart. But the apps being increasingly important. You obviously have a role with strategic partnerships with apps. How are you thinking about that? How are you seeing that develop?
Yeah, really good question. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. I guess I'll probably start by saying that it's currently quoted that people are spending well over 4 hours a day on their mobile phones, which I don't know if any of you in the audience have an iPhone and have been as struck as I have been when I've seen my insights for screen time. But it's, especially after COVID, become some pretty horrifying statistics. But what exactly is everyone doing with all that time on their phone? I saw a quote from App Annie that 80% is spent in-app. And in 2021 alone, there were 230 billion app downloads. So, it's monumental. So if we move this over to sort of more of a affiliate context, specifically within Awin, for some time now, we've seen that of all of the clicks that we track on the network, well over 60% of those are now coming from mobile. So that really sort of lays testament to the increasing importance of not just mobile, but also apps. So in terms of the evolution of the space, and specifically to app tracking, of course, Awin predominantly tracked web-based sales, but with the growing importance of apps, it was really important that we moved with this wave and were able to offer that to our clients. So back in the day, Awin had its own native solution, but we very quickly came to realize that advertisers are really reluctant to update their apps unless it's absolutely necessary. And given the work that it takes, it's completely justified. So they much prefer to work with fewer ad tech providers that are able to offer them more. So what we found is that a lot of advertisers have relationships with mobile measurement partners, also known as MMPs. And so Awin outsourced, and we started a strategic partnership with these MMPs. So to give you a bit of context, MMPs work with advertisers to support them in collecting, organizing, and attributing predominantly their app data. So through sort of plugging into this pre-existing partnership that our clients already had with the MMPs, we're able to receive server-to-server postbacks for these in-app events, and it's a really simple integration for the advertiser. It doesn't have to be a long and taxing process. And in doing so, we've seen between 2020 and 2021 over 120% growth in the number of advertisers that we have on the network that track in-app, but also, and probably more interesting to you guys, we've seen double growth across all of the KPIs for those that did implement app tracking. So that's commission, sales, revenue, and so on and so forth.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I think it's really interesting as well what you said about this time we spend on our mobiles. So my previous job, I was working for Alibaba, the very large Chinese e-commerce firm. And the main shopping site that it operates in China is called Taobao. And one of the things that struck me the most as a statistic last year, before I left the firm, was that the average consumer in China went to that app 9 times a day. Right? It's a shopping app, right? But they went there 9 times a day and spend half an hour a day there. And working in a big organization like that with a lot of resource, we spend a lot of time thinking about, well, what are they doing? Right? How do we make that experience really sticky? How do we make it really engaging? How do we monetize it? How do we make it good for the brands who are selling on the platform? And again, this idea of, if you're Alibaba, you can do that, right? Because it's a very, very large firm. If you're a smaller firm with a range of different objectives, you have to think a bit differently. You have to think about finding partners who can help you with it. So finding those partners who can help optimize your app experience, but then also finding those partners to help you can measure everything that takes place there feels super important. I'm toying with the idea of going to Yellow. I wonder if I just leave you feeling nervous, kind of like, but no, let's hand the mic to Yellow, please, kind of thing. So Yellow's not the, I want to stress this, he's not the privacy guy, right? But Johannes did mention privacy concerns, and I wondered if you could talk to me a little bit about how do we approach this from a privacy perspective, and what are some of the things we have in place?
Yeah, so as Awin, we have a very intense integration process with all of our partners. As Awin, we also need to protect our advertisers, our publishers, and our business, especially. So first of all, we have a master tech agreement for the implementation of these partners in the master tech that needs to be signed, delivered. Then we send them a whole info security questionnaire with all those questions. So you have to imagine if a partner is missing company details on their website, we go back to them that they're missing that, etc., etc. So they not even get integrated. So an InfoSec questionnaire can take up to 2 months already, because we advise also partners what they have to change to be compliant to the GDPR rules on a global level as well. And then afterwards, we're going to the integration phase, the fun thing. So they think, hey, we can start within a week. That's also not true. So we also have to try to get them compliant to the Awin tracking. How does things work? Where do they have to fire? Which data do they collect, etc. But I said, I'm not a data guy. So if you have questions about it, please send me an email, and we have a whole team around it who can give you the answer to it as well.
It's a very dangerous offer. But I think, come and talk to us afterwards, by all means, please. While we're with you, not being the privacy guy, how do you see, is there any tension between the kind of traditional publishers and the tech partners? How do you see them working together, and how does the kind of commission element work?
Basically, without getting too technical as well, traditional publishers is the bread and butter of Awin from 2020 going forward. It would be really stupid if the last click model would give them to the partners as well, that they have all the sales contributed to the partners. So what we did there is to put these technology partners on site on a soft cookie. So traditional partners are on a hard cookie, so a content party can override a voucher code, etc., etc. And a tech partner like Sri can't override a traditional publisher, which means your whole program within Awin also gets an uplift. So every traffic that comes through via content party and they go through Sri in a sale, the sale will be contributed to that traditional partner publisher. Right, Sri?
Yeah, seems right. So maybe we go back to Sri quickly, and then after I've spoken to Sri briefly, please raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll come to you with the mic. So we'll have one more question for Sri, and then we'll take questions from you guys. If we don't have any questions in the audience, I have more that I can talk to these guys about, which I think you'll find interesting, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions as well. So Sri, maybe as a last question before we give the audience the opportunity, what are the obstacles you find to this kind of approach, this outsourced innovation approach? So when you're taking that approach, implementing via Awin, other obstacles that you come across, how do you overcome them? What are some of the most common pitfalls?
So I think it boils down to 2. Well, actually, I'm going to change that, 3. One which I should talk to is the one that Yellow talked about, is info security, and I know Germany's very big on it, but to be frank, more countries and more retail organizations and anyone trading online is going to be, with the number of issues that they've been in the last years. So companies like ours, we've actually done ISO 27001 accreditation, which, trust me, is not that fun. But it does mean that when we're on a retailer site or in any way, if we're integrated, we're very, very safe. So we work with brands like Marks and Spencer's and Boots only because we have this accreditation. So that's a barrier, because some countries are more sensitive than others, and that's reasonable. And some organizations are more sensitive than others. So it's about understanding what your customer cares about. The second barrier, I would say, is this piece around being able to integrate quickly and painlessly, i.e., you're the business contact, and the business contact has to go to the tech people and go, do you have bandwidth? And the answer is always no, because there's always another project going on. So the barrier will be that point there around, well, will I really get the time from the tech resource? And I find that this solution with Awin means that actually you can just go, that's a non-issue. You don't need any tech integration because it's going to be done. So everything can be focused on the commercial activities, in our case, like looking at designs, which the tech guy doesn't care about. You will care about that, the experience on the website. And then the third one, if I'm honest, a barrier tends to be, believability. Because lots of numbers get thrown around, right? We'll uplift 10% here and 10% there, and one kind of funny analogy is the idea that if every single person had said they can give you another 10%, your business would be flying. All you have to do is add 10 partners. It'd be brilliant. It doesn't always work that way. So there can be disbelief, and I think therefore we work really hard to do A/B split tests using Google Optimize, because then the client can then pump in their GA, Google Analytics, or whatever tracking they use, straight into a third-party tool like Optimizely or GA, where therefore they will see the incremental uplift on a A/B split test. And that's how we tackle that. So kind of three issues is the sensitivity around information security, the real ease of not needing technical resource, and then lastly, really giving data that gives believability.
Super. Thank you. Do we have any questions in the room? Any hands up? So shy. You sure? I'll give you 5 more seconds. Otherwise, Clementine, you should be prepared. I'm coming to you next. Okay. Okay. If anything occurs, just wave, and we'll come straight to you. So Clementine, we were talking about apps. There's this obstacle around the ATT updates to iOS, which I know you know a lot about. So could you maybe talk to us a bit about that? Because on app tracking, that feels tremendously important. And there's this constant, whether it's a regulatory landscape, privacy, or some of the big tech players introducing a different approach, we constantly have to be aware of it. So how are we approaching this?
Sure. So it's a big question. So guys, strap in. I don't know if anyone in the audience will find it as interesting a topic as I do, but I'll try to gauge the room. So I'll start by giving a very short recap as to what ATT is. So it's Apple's app tracking transparency framework, and it was announced in 2020. And essentially, the easiest way to look at it is it was Apple's way of mimicking the privacy-centric approach to tracking that we've seen across browsers for quite some time now. And amongst some other changes, one of the main ones is that for any app developers that track their in-app users, they would now need to present an in-app prompt in order to track them. So they would need that user consent. So of course, when this was announced, the industry justifiably were in turmoil. They didn't know whether they had the capacity to adapt in a way that would enable them to continue doing their jobs, but in a way that complied with this framework. And everyone was predicting pretty much the apocalypse within in-app measurement. When it was finally released in 2021, I have to say that the impact was marginal compared to what we thought it would be. And it was definitely a case of not an overnight shift. It was a relatively slow process, a transition of app developers actually complying with the framework, but also users updating their OS. And I think these are two things that maybe weren't considered before it kind of came into effect. And then moving sort of more long-term to understand why, at least at Awin, we didn't see huge impacts. I want to dive into 3 main reasons, at least in my opinion. The first one is around the e-privacy directive. So this has been around since 2002. And this essentially stipulates the need for advertisers to gain user consent when they are using any cookie-based tracking. So with that, alongside GDPR, which later came in 2018, I think there was already a real sort of privacy-centric feel in the air. And so some of Awin's more diligent advertisers, they already had in-app consent prompts within their app. And so this minimized impact in one way. The next thing I want to jump into, which it surprised me when I first saw it, is the actual market share of iOS within the sort of operating systems worldwide. So globally, this only sits at 28%. And since we're in Germany, I'll give you the German stat, it's 29%. So this was quite shocking to me. So, you know, Apple is really having the minority share there. So I think that is a big part of why impact wasn't as big as we initially thought. And then the last thing to note is that the MMPs that I mentioned earlier, some of the advertisers working with them will actually have privacy-centric solutions in place to enable them to continue tracking these non-consenting users, but in a sort of more privacy-centric way through anonymizing the user in the journey more so. So, you know, to summarize, impact wasn't as bad as we thought it would be, but it definitely varies on a case-by-case basis. You've got to think about opt-in rates, which, again, they were predicted to be as low as 5%, and that's not the case. They are much higher than we thought they'd be. Where you are in the world, if you've got a privacy-centric solution, and so on and so forth. And I do want to caveat my answer with one thing, though. We, of course, saw really accelerated growth due to COVID. And, you know, there is the possibility that that growth somewhat disguised any drop-offs that we may have seen due to ATT. So I'm not going to sit up here and say there was absolutely no drop-off, because I'm sure there was some. But in terms of the performance we saw on the network, we didn't see big drops.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is everyone still with us?
Yeah, no, everyone's look at that. There's loving ATT. Okay, so last call for any questions from the audience. Yes. Okay, I'm coming your way. Guys, please put your headphones on so you can hear. I'm going to sit close to you so I can hear too.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Filaki, also a former Awin colleague, by the way. But now I work on the advertiser side of things. I'm actually having a question about a scenario that is going through my head. And it's actually something that Jelle touched also before. So talking about attribution of last click if there are multiple publisher touch points. Let's say me as a user, I go in and I want to look for a voucher code for Nike. So I go on Google, Nike voucher code, I land on a publisher voucher page, coupons.de for instance. I get redirected to the advertiser's page, and then I click through it, and then at some point the increasingly overlay or recommendations appear. So my question is now, is this based on a post-view technology, or is this still that you as a user need to click on the recommendations of increasingly, and then the cookie is getting overwritten and increasingly gets the sale? Or, as Jelle said, there is a soft cookie integrated where the touch point of the other publisher still gets, you know what I mean? My initial question is basically, how big is the risk of getting the other publisher overwritten, and how is it possible to attribute, give the benefit to both publishers?
Give the benefit to both publishers. So perhaps Shri, perhaps Jelle, you guys might have it. Anyone else as well?
Hi. Funny hearing myself. Thank you for the question. So first thing, it's not post-view. It's a soft cookie. And so what that means is, yes, you have to interact with the module, the frequently brought together module. Only then would the cookie drop. The cookie, because it's soft cookie, does not override the coupon.de site. So in that scenario, we would not get any commission. Coupon.de would get the commission. So then you might be asking, well, what's in it for increasingly? So then what we understand is the unit economics works that affiliate traffic tends to be, and we work this out for each retailer in turn, but let's take for this retailer, the affiliate traffic is 20% of their site. So what we would then say in that negotiation with the retailer is, look, for that 20%, we are not taking any commission. We are only going to take commission on the 80% that isn't affiliate. Yeah?
You're good? Okay. Any more questions in the room? Otherwise, I'm... No, okay. Yellow, okay.
I think if you can think about if I have multiple partners on the site, like for example, I integrate 8 of them, that's going to be a different story, of course, because then it can be overwritten, of course, as well. What I then would advise you to do is have a multi-touch attribution system as well to see which partners work alongside best with each other and contribute them and attribute them in the same way, in a rightful way, with, for example, a content publisher as well. But it, as I can imagine as well, if it's on site, you think like, wow, that's going to be way too much of budget on an affiliate CPA base. We're also more than happy to work in a hybrid way or even on a fixed fee basis way with a partner like Increasely. And that's maybe even better as well for the optimized performance.
Okay. So with no more questions in the room, I'm going to ask super fast, one-sentence answers from each of you. So having talked about outsourcing innovation, and this will be the last question. We'll just come this way. What's kind of one technology or innovation that you would like to see? You know, if you think about like within this that perhaps we're either not offering or that you think customers would like to see, is there anything that you think would be super valuable? Or do you think we're doing it all already?
We're not doing it all already. I think there's so many companies are doing great. The only thing is maybe I don't think about anything and you're sitting in a room like, hey, we can help your retailers. So basically the one thing I think about is Constant.co. I don't know if people know. It's like shoppable marketing experience on social platforms like TikTok, Snapchat. So basically in your point of inspiration, do a purchase. Because you're in the point of inspiration and buy the products right from a different platform that's enabling a lot of revenue as well.
Great answer.
Well, I'm always thinking of our biggest competitor in affiliate marketing, and it's actually Amazon, to be honest, because, you know, the checkout process in Amazon, you know, just swipe right and then you get the product you're ordering. So what will be the answer now to your question is I want to be, or maybe we can use more technologies to get a personalized shop for you. You know, when you are entering the site and you're looking for barbecues on a store who's also selling a lot of other stuff, then you want to get, you know, your starting page with a lot of barbecues and that stuff, and you want to get it more personalized, so you have the feeling, all right, this store really understands me because he's showing me actually what I need, and to be more focused on actually what the customer needs and showing up with the right solution to it with tech partners. So that is actually, would be great or greater as we actually do it right now.
Awesome. Clementine.
Awin offer it all. Guys, just work with Awin. No, I'm joking. I have maybe more of a fun answer and then a boring one.
Okay, let's find out.
Yeah,
Do we have to guess which one's which?
No, okay, so I'd say my more interesting answer would be there's a company called Nanos, and I think it feeds really nicely into, you know, David mentioned that we have our access department at Awin, which focuses on SMEs, and I think, you know, more often than it should be, there's not enough of a focus on SMEs because, yeah, they don't have the biggest budgets, but actually if you bring them all together, then, yeah, you know, there's a lot of budget to be spent. So there's a business called Nanos, which really supports SMEs in launching campaigns in a completely optimized, automated way on platforms like Google, Facebook, and Instagram. And they use their AI technology to constantly optimize the campaign, allocate budget accordingly, and so on and so forth. So they're a really cool company that I've been working with a bit lately, and maybe the less traditionally exciting one, but one that I think is really exciting, is a company probably some of you know called Telium. In the concept of Awin, they are really sort of supporting us in getting our clients enabled with server-to-server tracking, and in the same way we work with MMPs, it enables us to enhance an advertiser's tracking setup without putting work onto the advertiser. So maybe less exciting, but a great technology company.
It was two exciting answers. Thank you. And Shri, final answer.
I'm going to say three things. One is I have
one
to
sentence,
say in
though,
one
right?
sentence. There's going to be a lot of ands. I have to say increasingly. Second, I would say I'm going to stargaze a little bit here. I would like the ability to have influencers or micro-influencers integrated in the shopping experience. And thirdly, everyone's got to like the idea of having glasses where you could augment reality products and actually buy them right in front of you rather than on a screen.
Very good answer. And that was one sentence, actually. And influencers we can help with. Influencers we can help with. So I would say I think this is an area where we can do a bit more together. I don't know if we're ready with the glasses, but we'll try. So look, everybody, thanks so much for staying. Thanks for the question. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. Please say thank you to the panelists. Much appreciated. And thank you very much to all of you for being here. And please enjoy the rest of OMR. Thanks very much. Thank you.
That was fun.
So hot.